Have you ever felt invisible in someone's life? Like no matter how much you give, how much you show up, or how deeply you care, they don't seem to value you. It's a painful place to be, isn't it? You replay conversations in your mind, hoping to decode why they're so distant. You bend over backward, making yourself more available, thinking this time they'll notice. But they don't. Instead, you feel smaller, less important, and more desperate for their attention. Why is that? Why do the people we care about the most often fail to appreciate us until we're gone? Let me ask you something. What if the problem isn't them? What if the issue lies in how much access you've given them to your energy, your time, your very being? What if the key to making them miss you is not in trying harder, but in stepping away entirely? Today, we're going to explore a method rooted in both modern psychology and ancient Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us the power of control, detachment, and inner strength. This is not about playing games or manipulation. It's about reclaiming your worth and letting your absence speak louder than your presence ever could. By the end of this journey, you'll not only understand how to make them miss you, but you'll also transform yourself into someone who no longer needs their validation. And when they come back, and trust me, they often do, you'll be deciding from a place of power, not desperation. So stick with me, because the final steps will completely shift how you see yourself and your relationships. Let's begin. 1. Recognize your own worth. Why are we so quick to forget our value? Why do we feel the need to bend and contort ourselves into what we think someone else wants? If you're honest with yourself, have you ever acted like your own worth depended on their attention? It's a harsh question, but one that deserves your reflection. Many of us get caught in the trap of thinking that if we just show up more, love harder, or sacrifice enough, someone will finally see our value. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't miss what they believe they can always have. When you make yourself too available, too eager to please, you unintentionally diminish your value in their eyes. You become the constant, the thing they assume will always be there. And human nature, as both modern psychology and Stoicism teach us, is drawn to mystery, scarcity, and what is not easily attainable. Let's pause here. Are you truly living as though you know your worth? Or are you handing it over to someone else, hoping they'll validate it for you? Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Have you been so desperate for someone to value you that you've forgotten how to value yourself? Here's what recognizing your worth looks like. You stop overextending yourself for someone who gives you the bare minimum. You stop begging for attention in places where it's not freely given. You begin to hold yourself to a higher standard, one where you no longer allow yourself to be treated as an option. This isn't arrogance. This is alignment with your intrinsic value. Your worth is not dependent on whether someone else acknowledges it. It exists because you exist. But until you act as though you believe that, why should anyone else? How do you start recognizing your worth? The first step is to stop trying to prove it. Let me say that again. Stop trying to prove your worth to others. Instead, start proving it to yourself. Focus on what brings you fulfillment outside of their attention. Is it your career? Your hobbies? Your personal growth? Pour your energy into those areas instead. When you begin to live as though you know your worth, something remarkable happens. Others begin to see it too. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In the same way, waste no more time trying to convince someone of your value. Live in a way that reflects it. This is not about making them miss you. It's about making yourself undeniable. And when they do miss you, it will be because your absence is felt, not because you begged for their attention. So where do we go from here? How do we begin to act on this recognition of our worth? The answer lies in understanding the next crucial step: the power of absence. When you've truly embraced your value, stepping away becomes not an act of manipulation, but a declaration of self-respect. Let's explore that further. 2. The power of absence. What happens when you stop showing up? When you stop texting first, stop being the one who always reaches out, stop being the constant in their life. Let me ask you this. If you were to vanish today, would they feel your absence, or would they only notice it when they needed something from you? It's a difficult question, but one you must confront. The truth is, absence is powerful. Absence creates space. Absence forces people to notice the void where your presence used to be. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people will not appreciate you fully until they feel what life is like without you in it. It's not because they're cruel or unfeeling, it's simply human nature. We don't cherish what's always available. We don't value what we believe we'll never lose. But the question isn't really about them, is it? It's about you. Can you step away, even when every part of you wants to stay? Can you trust that your absence will say more than your words ever could? Let's turn to Stoicism for guidance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you pull back from someone, you're not punishing them. You're not playing games. You're taking control of what you can control yourself. You're choosing to value your time, your energy, and your peace enough to stop pouring them into a relationship that doesn't reciprocate. Think about it. How many times have you tried harder only to feel more invisible? How many sleepless nights have you spent waiting for them to notice you? And has it worked? Has overextending yourself ever led to lasting respect, love, or appreciation? Probably not. That's why the tactic of absence is so powerful. It shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer the one chasing. You're no longer the one available at a moment's notice. And that shift, your silence, your absence, is what forces them to reevaluate your worth. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a radio station that's always on in the background. You barely notice it anymore, right? But if it suddenly stops playing, there's an immediate sense of something missing. Silence speaks louder than noise. It grabs attention. Your absence will have the same effect if you allow it. But here's the key. You don't disappear to manipulate them. You disappear because you've recognized that staying is no longer serving you. This is about self-respect, not revenge. When you step away, you create space, not just for them to miss you, but for yourself to rediscover who you are without their validation. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying so hard to make them see your worth, they often do. Why? Because absence creates scarcity, and scarcity creates value. Suddenly, you're no longer predictable, no longer accessible, and that unpredictability is magnetic. But even if they don't come back, you've won. You've reclaimed your energy, your time, and your peace. You've reminded yourself that you are whole on your own. Now let me ask you, can you trust the process? Can you trust that stepping away is not a loss but a gain? Can you let your silence speak for you? Here's a challenge for you. The next time you feel the urge to reach out, to send that text, to check in, to prove you still care, pause. Breathe. Remind yourself that your absence is creating space for them to feel your worth. Then let it be. Trust that in your silence you are reclaiming your power. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever stepped away from someone who didn't value you? How did it feel, and what did you learn? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this message has inspired you to take that step, let me know. Your story might encourage someone else to reclaim their worth too. Before we move on to the next part, do me a favor. Hit that like button if this is opening your eyes to a new way of thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this journey. The next step is crucial. Learning how to control the urge to chase. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. Let's keep going. 3. Control the urge to chase. Why do we chase? Why, even when we know deep down that it doesn't work, do we keep reaching out, keep trying, keep hoping that this time it will make a difference? The urge to chase is powerful, isn't it? It feels like a wave crashing over you, a desperate need to hear their voice, to see their name pop up on your phone, to feel connected to them in any way possible. But let me ask you this. Has chasing ever given you the outcome you wanted? Think back to every time you sent that message, made that call, or bent over backward to get their attention. Did it bring them closer, or did it push them further away? If you're honest, you probably already know the answer. Chasing doesn't make them value you. It does the opposite. Every time you chase, you hand over your power. You confirm that they don't have to put in any effort because you'll always be there. And as long as you're chasing, they have no reason to miss you. Why would they, when your energy is constantly focused on them? The urge to chase often comes from fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of losing them, fear of facing the silence. But here's what you need to understand. Silence is not your enemy. It's your ally. The silence you're so afraid of is the very thing that creates the space for them to notice your absence. Stoicism teaches us to master our impulses and detach from outcomes. As Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about that. The urge to chase is your imagination running wild, telling you stories of what might happen if you don't act. They'll forget me. They'll move on. They'll never care again. But none of that is reality. The only thing that's real is this moment. And in this moment, the most powerful thing you can do is breathe through the urge and hold your ground. So what do you do when the wave of desperation hits? When the need to reach out feels unbearable? You pause, you breathe. You remind yourself that the urge is temporary, but the consequences of giving in are lasting. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you're strengthening your self-control. You're proving to yourself that you don't need their response to feel whole. Imagine this scenario. You're tempted to text them. You've typed out the message. You've reread it 100 times. But before you hit send, ask yourself, why am I doing this? What am I hoping to achieve? If the answer is anything other than honoring your own worth, delete the message. Let the silence do the work for you. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. Stoicism doesn't ask us to deny our emotions, but to understand them. When you feel the urge to chase, see it for what it is, a moment of vulnerability, a fear of loss. Acknowledge it, but don't let it control you. Redirect that energy into something productive. Go for a walk. Hit the gym. Pick up a book. Do something that brings you closer to your goals, not further away from them. Remember, every time you chase, you're running in the wrong direction. Instead of moving toward growth and self-respect, you're moving further away from the person you want to become. But every time you resist the urge, you're reclaiming your power. You're teaching yourself and them that your energy is valuable, not something to be taken for granted. Here's the beauty of controlling the urge to chase. It shifts the dynamic entirely. When you stop chasing, they start wondering. Your silence forces them to question their own actions. They start to feel the absence of your energy. And in that space, they're given the chance to miss you, to realize what they've lost. But even if they don't, you've already won. You've proven to yourself that you can master your impulses, that you can stand firm in your worth, that you don't need their attention to feel whole. And that kind of self-mastery, that's priceless. Now, let's take this journey one step further. If you can control the urge to chase, what else can you do? The answer lies in where you direct that energy next. It's time to turn the focus back where it belongs, on you. Let's explore how in the next part. 4. Redirect your focus. When was the last time you truly focused on yourself? Not in a superficial way, but deeply, intentionally. If you're like most people, the energy you've been giving to others, especially those who don't reciprocate, has left little space for you. And that's the real tragedy, isn't it? We get so caught up in trying to earn someone else's attention that we forget the most important relationship in our lives, the one we have with ourselves. Let me ask you something. What would happen if you redirected all the energy you've been pouring into them back into your own life? What if, instead of waiting for their text, their call, their approval, you used that time to build something meaningful for yourself? How different would your life look? Here's the harsh reality. When you're consumed by thoughts of them, analyzing their actions, waiting for their attention, you're giving them rent-free space in your mind. They're out there living their life, probably not even thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. Meanwhile, you're stuck in a loop, draining your energy on something or someone that isn't investing back into you. This has to stop. Your focus is one of the most powerful tools you have, and right now, it's being misused. By redirecting your focus, you take back control. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your sense of self. So where should that focus go? On you, on your growth, on becoming the best version of yourself, not for them, but for you. Start by asking yourself, what have I been neglecting in my own life? Maybe it's your physical health. Maybe it's a passion project you've been putting off. Maybe it's simply the time you spend with your own thoughts, unclouded by worries about someone else. When you shift your energy toward your own growth, something remarkable happens. Not only do you feel more fulfilled, but you also become more attractive, not just to them, but to everyone. Why? Because people are drawn to those who are focused on their own lives, their own passions, their own happiness. Confidence and self-sufficiency are magnetic. Think about it this way. Imagine you're watching a movie. Would you rather follow a character who's waiting around, hoping someone else will notice them? Or a character who's out there conquering challenges, discovering new interests, and building a life they love? You already know the answer. Be that character. Live a story worth watching. The beauty of redirecting your focus is that it shifts the dynamic entirely. When you stop chasing them, you stop being predictable. They start to notice your absence, your silence, your independence. And in that space, they begin to wonder, what changed? Why aren't they reaching out? Have they moved on? But here's the most important part. You're not doing this for their reaction. You're doing it for you. It's not about pretending to be happy or busy to make them curious. It's about genuinely investing in yourself, so that whether they come back or not, you're thriving. This is a fundamental principle of Stoicism. You control your actions, not their reactions. The growth you experience in this process is yours to keep, regardless of their response. As you redirect your focus, keep this in mind. Every time you choose to focus on yourself instead of them, you're sending a powerful message, not just to them, but to yourself. The message is this: I am worth more than waiting around. My time and energy are valuable. I deserve to live a full, rich life, whether they're in it or not. So what will you do with this new energy? Will you start that fitness routine you've been putting off? Will you pick up a hobby you've always wanted to try? Will you finally take that step toward a goal that's been sitting in the back of your mind? Whatever it is, start now. Shift the focus back where it belongs. And when you do, something incredible will happen. You'll feel stronger, more confident, more alive. And as you grow, you'll see that their attention, whether they give it or not, was never the prize. You are. Now that you've reclaimed your focus, it's time to prepare for the next challenge. Not everyone will be happy about your growth. They may test you, try to pull you back into old patterns. How do you handle that? Let's explore it next. 5. Avoid the traps. You've stepped back. You've stopped chasing. You've started redirecting your focus and reclaiming your energy. But then, out of nowhere, it happens. They reach out. Maybe it's a simple hey, a like on your social media post, or a message that seems innocent but feels loaded. You know what this is, don't you? It's the trap. Let's be honest. These small gestures can be incredibly tempting. After all, isn't this what you've been waiting for? Proof that they've noticed your absence. A sign that they're thinking about you. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Is this enough? Are these crumbs of attention really what you deserve? The truth is, when you start to grow and pull back, many people will instinctively try to regain control. It's not always malicious, it's just human nature. They're used to you being there, to you filling the gaps in their life. When you step away, it disrupts their sense of comfort. And instead of offering you the genuine effort and respect you deserve, they send out breadcrumbs, small, meaningless gestures designed to keep you in their orbit without requiring them to truly show up. So how do you recognize the traps for what they are? And more importantly, how do you avoid falling for them? The first step is to pause. When they reach out, resist the urge to respond immediately. Take a moment to ask yourself, what is their intention? Is this a genuine attempt to reconnect, or are they just trying to keep me on the hook? Here's a harsh truth. If they truly valued your absence, their actions would be clear, not vague. They wouldn't send you half-hearted texts or sporadic likes. They'd take meaningful steps to prove their commitment. Anything less than that is just an attempt to reel you back in without putting in the effort. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control whether they try to bait you with these traps, but you can control how you respond. And the strongest response is often no response at all. Think of it like this. Every time you engage with these traps, you give them exactly what they want, your attention, your energy, your validation. And what do you get in return? A cycle that keeps you stuck in the same place, waiting for something more that never comes. But when you refuse to engage, you send a powerful message. I know my worth, and I won't settle for less than what I deserve. This doesn't mean you have to be cold or harsh. Stoicism teaches us to act with both discipline and dignity. You don't need to lash out or explain yourself. Simply maintain your boundaries with quiet confidence. Let your silence speak for you. But here's where it gets tricky. Traps aren't always obvious. Sometimes they come in the form of an apology, a promise to change, or even an emotional confession. And while these might seem genuine on the surface, they only matter if they're backed by consistent action. So ask yourself, are their words being matched by behavior? Are they truly meeting me at my level? Or are they just saying what I want to hear? The key to avoiding traps is clarity. Be clear about what you deserve. Be clear about your boundaries. And most importantly, be clear about your own growth. You've worked hard to reclaim your energy, to redirect your focus, and to build a stronger version of yourself. Don't let a breadcrumb trail lead you back to where you started. Let me ask you, how do you want to be treated? Do you want someone who throws you scraps of attention, or someone who genuinely values you? The answer is obvious, isn't it? So act like it. Hold out for what you deserve, and don't settle for anything less. If this part resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever recognized a trap and avoided it? Or maybe you fell for one and learned something valuable from the experience. Share your story in the comments below. It might inspire someone else to hold their ground. And if this message is hitting home, hit that like button. Let me know you're following along on this journey of self-worth and transformation. The next step is about fully stepping into your power, living life on your own terms. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Let's keep going. 6. Live by your own rules. What would your life look like if you stopped bending to the expectations of others? If you stopped living to earn someone else's approval? If, instead, you created your own rules, built your own boundaries, and followed your own path? Can you imagine the freedom in that? When you step into your own power, something profound happens. You stop waiting. You stop adjusting yourself to fit into someone else's narrative. You realize that your time, your energy, and your life are yours to design. This isn't about selfishness, it's about self-respect. Too often we find ourselves living by unspoken rules set by others. We make decisions to keep the peace, to avoid rejection, or to meet someone else's expectations. But at what cost? How much of yourself have you sacrificed in the process? And has it made you any happier? Marcus Aurelius, a master of Stoicism, wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." These words aren't just about morality, they're about alignment. Living by your own rules means making choices that are true to who you are, not choices dictated by fear or the need for validation. So how do you start living by your own rules? It begins with clarity. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What are my values, my goals, my non-negotiables? Write them down if you need to. Seeing them in front of you makes it harder to forget them in moments of weakness. Then, take a hard look at your life. Where have you been compromising your values? Where have you said yes when you meant no? Where have you allowed others to cross boundaries you never intended to set? This process isn't comfortable. It requires brutal honesty with yourself, but it's necessary. Living by your own rules also means taking responsibility. When you create your own standards, you can't blame anyone else when things don't go as planned. You own your choices, your actions, and your outcomes. This isn't a burden, it's a liberation. It means you're in control. And here's the beautiful part. When you live by your own rules, you naturally start attracting the right people into your life. Those who respect your boundaries, those who align with your values, those who appreciate the version of you that isn't molded to fit their expectations. But let's address the fear, because it's real, isn't it? The fear that if you stop bending, if you stop adjusting, you'll lose people. And maybe you will. But ask yourself this: do I want people in my life who only value me when I'm shrinking? The answer, if you're honest, is no. When you live by your own rules, you don't just create a better life, you create a stronger version of yourself. You become someone who doesn't need to chase, doesn't need to beg, and doesn't need to compromise their worth. And in doing so, you set a standard for how others treat you. You show them that access to your time and energy is a privilege, not a right. So what are your rules? What kind of life do you want to create? The answers to these questions are yours to define. And when you start living in alignment with those answers, you'll find a sense of peace and strength you've never known. This is the moment where you take full ownership of your story. But the journey doesn't end here. Growth requires more than just boundaries, it requires pushing past them. How do you challenge yourself to keep evolving? That's what we'll explore next. Let's keep going. 7. Challenge yourself. When was the last time you truly pushed yourself? Not in a small, comfortable way, but in a way that felt uncomfortable, even scary. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. To evolve into the person you're meant to be, you have to challenge yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Let me ask you this: have you been holding yourself back? Have you been avoiding risks, staying where it feels safe, or clinging to routines that no longer serve you? If so, why? Is it fear of failure? Fear of judgment? Or maybe it's the belief that you're not capable of more. Here's a truth that Stoicism teaches us. We are stronger than we believe, but only if we're willing to test our limits. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the challenges you face are not obstacles, they are the path forward. They are the means by which you grow stronger. So what does it mean to challenge yourself? It means breaking free from the habits, patterns, and fears that keep you stuck. It means stepping into the unknown, taking risks, and daring to fail. Because in failure you learn, and in learning you grow. Start small if you need to. Maybe it's setting a fitness goal you've been avoiding. Maybe it's finally tackling the project you've been putting off. Or maybe it's something as simple as speaking up in situations where you'd normally stay silent. Each challenge, no matter how small, builds your confidence and expands your comfort zone. But don't stop there. Keep raising the bar. As you accomplish one goal, set another. Push yourself further than you thought possible. Not for anyone else, but for you. Because every challenge you overcome proves to yourself that you are capable, resilient, and unstoppable. And here's the beauty of this process. As you grow, you change, you become a version of yourself that commands respect, not just from others, but from yourself. You start to see your own worth in action, not just in theory. And that kind of self-belief, it's unshakable. Let me ask you again, what's one thing you've been avoiding because it feels too difficult? What's one fear you've allowed to control your decisions? Now's the time to face it, to step into it, to prove to yourself that you are stronger than you think. As you challenge yourself, remember this: you are not competing with anyone else. This journey is yours. It's about becoming better than you were yesterday. It's about creating a life that reflects your values, your goals, and your potential. I want to hear from you. What's one challenge you're ready to take on? Share it in the comments. By putting it out there, you're not just committing to yourself, you're inspiring others to do the same. And if this step has resonated with you, let me know by hitting that like button. Every action you take, no matter how small, is a step toward the person you're meant to be. Now, as you embrace this process of growth, you'll find yourself standing on stronger ground. You'll start to notice that when others come back into your life, you're no longer the same person they once knew. How do you navigate that moment? How do you decide from a place of strength? Let's explore that next. Stay with me. 8. Decide from a place of strength. When they finally return, you'll face a pivotal moment. They'll feel your absence, notice your growth, and realize what they've lost. But here's the question. Will you let them back into your life? And if so, on what terms? Let's pause for a moment. How different are you now from the person you were when this journey began? You've reclaimed your energy. You've redirected your focus. You've set boundaries, built new habits, and challenged yourself in ways you never thought possible. Do you really want to give all of that progress away to someone who didn't see your worth until you walked away? The answer is not black and white. It's not about shutting them out or letting them in without question. It's about making your decision from a place of strength, not need. And that's the key difference. The person you are now, the person you've worked so hard to become, doesn't make decisions out of fear, desperation, or longing. You decide with clarity, dignity, and self-respect. So how do you decide if they deserve a place in your life again? Start with these questions. Have they demonstrated real change, or are they simply reacting to the void your absence created? Are their actions aligned with their words, or are they offering empty promises? Do they truly value the new version of you, or are they trying to pull you back into old patterns? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Similarly, don't fear letting someone go if it means preserving the life you've built. If their return jeopardizes your peace, your growth, or your boundaries, then the answer is simple. You walk away. But if they show genuine effort, if their actions prove they respect the person you've become, then the choice is yours. You get to decide what role they play in your life moving forward. Just remember, you're no longer the person who waits for scraps of attention. You're no longer the person who sacrifices their worth for someone else's comfort. When you decide from a place of strength, you take your power back. You're no longer at their mercy. Instead, you set the terms. You control how much access they have to your time and energy. You choose whether they're worth the space in your life, not the other way around. Let me ask you, what will you do when they return? Will you let their words sway you, or will you evaluate their actions? Will you hold on to the boundaries you've set, or will you fall back into old patterns? These are the questions only you can answer. This is your moment to stand tall in everything you've built, to honor the work you've done, to choose yourself first no matter what. And remember, this isn't just about them, it's about you. The decision you make in this moment will set the tone for how you allow others to treat you in the future. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced this moment of decision? How did you handle it? And what did you learn? Share your experience in the comments. It might inspire someone else who's navigating the same challenge. And if this journey has resonated with you, hit that like button to let me know you're stepping into your strength. You've come so far. This isn't the end, it's a new beginning. A life lived on your terms, with people who truly value you. Stay strong, stay focused, and never forget, you hold the power now. Thank you for being part of this journey, and I can't wait to hear how you're embracing your growth. Until next time, keep choosing you. You've reached the end of this journey, but in truth, it's only the beginning. Over the course of these steps, you've learned to reclaim your power, redirect your focus, and build a version of yourself that doesn't just survive, but thrives. You've embraced the principles of Stoicism by detaching from outcomes, controlling your impulses, and aligning your actions with your worth. But let me ask you one final question. Who are you now? Take a moment to reflect on everything you've gained. You're no longer waiting for someone else to validate your existence. You've stopped chasing, stopped begging, and stopped bending to fit into someone else's world. Instead, you've built your own. This isn't about manipulation or revenge, it never was. This is about finding your strength, standing firm in your value, and living a life that reflects who you truly are. When they miss you, and they will, it won't be because of some game you played. It will be because they finally see the light you've always carried, a light that you no longer dim for anyone. So what's next for you? This isn't the end of your growth. Growth never truly ends. Keep challenging yourself. Keep living by your own rules. And when you face moments of doubt or weakness, as we all do, Return to the principles you've learned here. You are stronger than you think. You are worth more than you've accepted in the past. And you are fully capable of creating the life you want. Now, let's keep this conversation alive. Have these steps resonated with you? Which part of the journey hit closest to home? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you're stepping into your power. And if this message has sparked a change in you, let someone else feel it too. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it. And let's inspire each other to keep growing. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through this process. Your time, your attention, and your commitment to yourself mean everything. I'll leave you with one final reminder from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and never stop choosing you. Until next time, be well, and remember, you hold the power now.